What is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again for some more content for you guys. And as Spurs aren't playing this weekend, it's our favourite time of year where we get your unpopular opinions and we react to it in the studio. Joining me today's video is Barnaby Slater from the Spurs podcast. How are you doing, Barnaby? Looking forward to this video?
I'm looking forward to the video. I haven't had a good week, though, after last weekend's result. And let's face it, it's depressing to be off for 2 weeks. Usually it's for international break, which is depressing enough, but it's not even that. And we have the prospect of having to watch Chelsea potentially win a trophy with Pochettino as well, which would be nightmare above nightmare.
Yeah, but look, I'm sure a lot of angry Spurs fans after ending this little mini break with a defeat. But let's see what you have got to say with the unpopular opinions. It's always one of my favourite types of content. I love reacting to what you guys have to say. So let's get straight into it. The first one we're going to be talking about is Talk THFC. He says, we should have kept Reguilon as we have no backup left back. Now, Reguilon, we were all ready to see him go, weren't we, at the beginning of the season? I think it's fair to say. We missed it. Look, could we have used him against the Wolves game? Against Wolves, sorry. We had Ben Davies in that game. Reguilon been playing quite well for Brentford recently, although Man United had no interest in keeping him on.
Yeah, I thought Ben Davies did all right, actually, which is always a dangerous thing to say amongst Spurs fans, of course. But I think he did okay. I thought it was Emerson Royal had the worst game of the two of them. I thought it was very clear with Sergio Reguilon straight from the start when Big Ange came in that he just didn't think he was good enough at what he needed his fullbacks to do for the system. And, you know, him going on 2 loans already this season kind of shows that. I think he's kind of perfect for Brentford, to be honest. He's playing well for them, getting forward quite well. But as ever with Reguilon, it's kind of his final ball that isn't great. So I can see why Talk THFC has said it. But I think Ben Davies as a player, but also I think as a leader within the dressing room, that's probably one of the reasons why Big Ange chose to keep him and let Sergio go elsewhere. Yeah,
I think I agree with you. I think the way Brentford play, Reguilon doesn't need to be like the best going forward. He just has to be very hardworking, be very aggressive, have a lot of pace, and run a lot, which he loves to do. So I think I completely agree. That's why he's putting in some really good performances. And I think Davis as well, he's a bit more of a composed player, which playing in that kind of inverted fullback role maybe works. But I do think sometimes, obviously, he's not the paciest player. And when you're inverted and you're leaving all that space, it can work against you if you're, getting hit very quickly by certain players like Pedro Neto, which definitely worked against us on the weekend.
But Reguilon wasn't a great defender either. He's not a great defender either. He kind of made some bad decisions quite regularly, I thought. So, yeah, I can see why you've said it, but not for me.
All right, next one. Fan of sports. I guess he likes a lot of sports, he says. He says, our system of play has been found out by other clubs. Unless we start getting standout performances from our front line, we'll be out of Europe by the end of the season. Maybe a bit reactionary given some of our performances haven't been great recently. But what is interesting, what I've noticed, everyone's been talking about how bad we've been playing recently or like our bad form. I looked at the form table. The last 10 games, we were third in the form table, which is which you wouldn't believe considering how we're talking about. But I don't think it's any secret that the last few games, definitely we haven't been at our best. No. We've definitely been quite open at the back. We haven't been creating that many chances. So is any part of you worried that, like Fan of Sports is saying, that maybe teams are starting to work out the system?
I don't think it's that we've been found out. I don't think anything's really changed other than the fact that our kind of front 6 aren't scoring as many goals as they were earlier in the season, right? So, a lot of how we play, especially if we're coming up against teams who play a low block, is how quickly can we get that first goal? How quickly can we come out the blocks? Can we put them under pressure where the opposition have to change their tactic? And in the last few games, we haven't scored early goals. We haven't created that momentum and pressure. And so I don't really feel like it's about being found out. I think, teams were playing low blocks against us at the start, but Maddison was on form, hadn't been injured. He's still working his way back. Sonny was playing as the 9 and we were creating loads of chances for him. And at the moment, it's just not quite clicking. But hopefully this kind of 2 weeks of just training for them and the opportunity for, say, Bentancur and Maddison to kind of really get fitter, we'll see a return to that kind of early season form.
Yeah, I think found out is because it kind of implies like this way of playing is doomed to fail once teams work it out, and then once that happens, we're not going to be able to overcome those challenges. I think it's just a case of we're not perfect at the way we play at the moment. Teams are exploiting that right now. Yes, we have a lot of good players and stuff, but we're still it's still very early not very early, but it's still early in Ange's project. So we're not going to have perfected this system, especially with all the challenges we're playing, and also just because. Just because players are back from injury and back from international tournaments doesn't mean they're 100% match fit and ready to go as well. So I never expected just as soon as the players are back, we're going to be hitting the ground running. I still expected maybe a couple of games to find their rhythm, all that kind of stuff. So I think found out is a bit maybe going too far when it comes to our performances recently. Yeah, it's a bit concerning, I guess, the fact that when the players have come back, we haven't seemed to have gotten better. But I do think with time, I think this little break will help us. And with time, we will start playing, we'll start looking sharper, more intense, and the performances will come, I'm sure of it. Yeah. I don't think it's a case of being found out.
And if I was going to ask Fan of Sports a question, I'd say when he says we'll be out of Europe by the end of the season, does he mean top 4 or does he mean like all the European places? Because I think we're pretty nailed on to get kind of top 7, which I think is what the Conference League will go down to. I'd be very surprised if we didn't come top 6. Now, Man United have put a run of games together, but they're still not very good. Like, they're not playing very well, and they're just kind of sneaking over the line. I don't know. I still feel relatively confident we'll finish above Manchester United. And I was saying to Sim, and I'm sure we'll get onto this before we came on, I quite fancy us to go to Villa and get a win there. And I think we'll finish above them as well. Yeah.
It was interesting to note, I was looking at last season, and we're actually only 2 points better off this point this season as last season. But the caveat would be, for the last 13 games of the season last season, we only picked up 15 points. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're going to pick up more than that this season.
And also, I'm actually watching the games now, whereas last season it was such dross that I basically wasn't turning up to my season ticket that I had, which, I'm ashamed to say it, but blame Antonio Conte.
Don't think you're the only one. Next one is Justin Glasser. He says, Manor Solomon is the best Ange winger at the club. It is a bit of a problem that I think people are picking up, that a lot of our wingers... Like how Ange likes to play his wingers, very wide. They get in a lot of one-on-one situations because we manipulate the play with the inverted fullbacks to basically get those wingers in one-on-one situations. Yep. And it is a bit of an elephant in the room, the fact that Son, Werner, Kulusevski and Johnson, as much as they have their attributes, I don't think any of their strong attributes is dribbling at fullbacks in one-on-one situations.
Explosive dribbling, yeah.
So do you think he has a case that Manor Solomon maybe could be the best fit?
Well, Manor Solomon is like the forgotten man. I almost totally forgot that we have Manor Solomon, and I haven't actually seen enough of him to say that he's the best Ange winger in the team. But I can see why you've made the point, Justin, because I've been calling on the watch-alongs on this channel, actually. I've been calling a lot for us to buy that kind of player, an explosive, dribbly winger who can beat a player on the outside and give something different. And actually, I think Manor Solomon's about to be back in training.
Correct.
In the next week or so. So maybe that is an option that we will use. It'll certainly give us something a bit different on the bench. I can't see him starting in reality. But I think we are getting close to that, especially with the performance against Wolves of Richarlison with his back to goal and holding the ball up. I think we are getting close to that question of whether should we look at playing Sonny back in the 9, even if that initially means moving Richarlison to the left, first of all. Be interesting to see if Big Ange and his coaching team are thinking about that with Palace coming up next week.
I think when it comes to Manor Solomon, I think in terms of profile, logically, there maybe is a case to say he could technically be the most kind of fit profile-wise for an Ange winger, but I kind of feel like with this tweet, it's a bit like absence makes the heart grow fonder. Definitely, a bit, and it's like I feel like all the time whenever there's an injured player and we're not playing well, it's like, oh, this guy when he comes back from an injury, and it's always like this savior, but then they come back and it's never the reality.
You know who else was brilliant at beating a man? Lucas Moura.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And I don't think any of us would want him in this squad at the moment. That's like no shade on Lucas Moura. Like, he had his benefits, and obviously in Amsterdam was unbelievable. But he could beat a player. But then once he'd done that, 9 times out of 10, what he did next was not good enough. And I need to see more of Manor Solomon to see whether his final ball can improve enough for that kind of profile of player to be useful. Because it's one thing beating a player, but then if he's hitting the first man every time or hacking it out for a goal kick, then it doesn't matter. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him for sure.
Statsu. I think it's pronounced. Apologies if I butchered that. He says, or they say, despite a great goal-scoring record in recent times, Richarlison shouldn't be our starter. If we want to be back on the heights of the first 10 games, we need Son to be the striker. Richarlison, obviously, off the back now, I think it's now 9 goals in his last 10 or 11 games. Obviously, hasn't scored in his last 2. Has hit a really rich vein of form. I think his performance level as well in general has been really improving, apart from maybe the Wolves game. But do you think, I would argue that maybe we looked our most fluid when Son is playing in that number 9. But is it a big issue? Like, are we not going to see our performances improve until that happens?
I mean, one thing that's worth talking about with Rishi is that his pressing is absolutely incredible and he works really hard. I do think there's a little bit of an element with Spurs at the moment, and Spurs fans, and I'm guilty of this as well. Because we had Harry Kane for so long, we are now kind of basically putting Richarlison's form up against what we're used to. Whereas at any other club, if Richarlison was playing at any other club now, say he was playing for Brentford and he'd scored the amount of goals he'd scored, people would be talking about him moving to a bigger club. Because that's scoring 10 goals in the Premier League. It actually doesn't happen that often. Not many players get to 10 goals, and I think he will get to 15 goals. So it's only his kind of back to goal hold up play that I have an issue with, and it had improved, and then he just did have a bad game, and that's why, maybe bring him out to the left. I don't know, but Ange sees him every day. Ange sees Sonny every day, and I back Ange to make the right decision. And like I said, I've been saying for a while, I think Richarlison will get to 15 league goals, and that will be an incredible return for him, I think.
I think the issue a lot of people have when it comes to who should play where in the front line is Son is our best left winger and our best striker. That's how I feel. So I don't think the problem is Richarlison playing up front. I think the problem is who plays on the left, because it just feels like Son at the moment, as much I love him, I just don't think he's a great left winger right now anymore. As much as I do think he can still do his job, I don't think that's his best position. But if it's not him, it's either Werner or Solomon, and they're not quite cutting it as well. So it's a bit, that's an issue. But I think Son or Richarlison up front, I like both of them there.
I think Sonny on the left wing is a really good player if it's a game where there's loads of space and you're not playing against a deep block. So against Villa, it wouldn't surprise me if Sonny had a similar game to what he did against Newcastle, where he was really getting at his fullback and there was some space. But yes, against that low block, Sonny doesn't have that explosive pace to go around the outside really anymore. So maybe that comes back to the Mano Solomon thing. Maybe, it'll be against those deep block teams that we'll see him. But yes, Sonny is our best left winger and our best 9, but Richarlison's doing a good enough job at 9 to keep him there for now, I think.
Greg says we should start with a back 3 of Van de Ven, Romero and Reguilon, with Destiny and Pedro as wing-backs, then Madders and Sarr in midfield, and a front 3 of Sonny, Richie and Decky. Mate, would you consider a change in formation? I guess maybe it's a reaction to some maybe less than perfect performances. Maybe that's why he's saying we should change formation. But sometimes a change in formation just freshen things up a bit and just make some more ideas. Reguilon does need some minutes. Maybe is he starting to get frustrated on the bench? Is there a case to move to a back 3? I'm
a bit triggered and scarred from the back 3 under Antonio Conte for so long. Like before Conte came, I've been saying for years, we need to play with a back 3, and then Conte came and I was like, it's going to be perfect. Eric Dyer can play in the middle. It's a perfect role for him, etc., etc. And then we just played such turgid football in a back 3. I personally think, I don't know, Greg, so we'll see, but a lot of things that I read on Twitter at the moment about Reguilon needing to play and stuff, it's like your new toy, isn't it? Everybody wants to see the new toy, but in reality, to play a back 3 just to give this player minutes, that's not a reason to do it. And the reason we're playing 4-3-3 is because that's what Ange thinks is best suited to the players we've got, and I do not foresee that changing anytime soon. Ange wants to have 4 players in central midfield. That's why he inverts the fullbacks. And to just have Madders and Sarr in midfield, I don't think would cover us quite enough. So I just can't see it at the moment.
Could be inverting wing backs instead of inverting fullbacks. Maybe that'll be interesting. That is it for episode 1 of Unpopular Opinion. Stay tuned. There'll be further episodes coming. We're releasing on the channel very, very shortly. But like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.